Hi, everyone. Welcome to Nom Watch Review, part of Nom Talk Network. On the show, we review the latest film drops or throwbacks celebrating a milestone while eating and drinking our favorite movie snacks and drinks. I'm your host, Erric Ramirez, and tonight, like always, I have a wonderful Voodoo Ranger and a seltzer water because water is important. And I am snacking on my go-to as well, Jolly Ranchers, because I'm just addicted to candy and sweets. So that's what I'm doing. But I am so excited to introduce to you our guests for tonight. We have Derrick, Anastasia, and Lonny. Sorry, words. I'm so excited to introduce you to them. Lonny, go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody out there and let them know what you're snacking and drinking on tonight.
My name is Lonny. I'm just an overall movie nerd, especially horror. You may have seen me on a couple of the other Nom Talks talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre and a few others. And I just love horror movies. I love gore and I love being scared. And right now I'm drinking one of my favorite drinks. My roommate came up with it. We call it the Palm Springs. Ooh. And it is cactus cooler and tequila and some bitters. It's delicious.
Ooh, that does sound delicious.
Oh, it's so good. They're dangerous. And then I'm just having a nice little gooey chocolate brownie that's gonna make me feel really good here in a little bit.
Oh, and we all enjoy gooey chocolate brownies that make us feel good.
We do. Some of us don't have them though.
I'm gonna have to send Anastasia somewhere.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Lonny. Anastasia, go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody out there. And what are you drinking and snacking on tonight?
I'm Anastasia. I'm actress, comedian, filmmaker thingy, my Bobby. I am drinking Costco brand sangria and a generic seltzer. And I'm snacking on M&Ms.
Fantastic.
Because I'm classy.
See, I was debating on the wine or the voodoo, and I have to go with the voodoo, but I'm also drinking generic seltzer water.
Yes, I think we have the same generic seltzer water brand.
Yes. Where is it? There it is. Yep.
But you have a flavor. Mine is just original, as they say.
Yeah. No, I go with the mandarin orange because it's delicious.
Much fair. I stole this from my sister's refrigerator, so I had no choice.
Nice. See, you get where you need to. Derrick, go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody out there. What are you eating and snacking on tonight?
Hey guys, I am super lame. I am drinking just regular water from my fancy Darth Vader, traveling thermal. And I'm also even more lame, and I'm eating rice and fish. So awkward.
That's not lame at all. It actually sounds really good.
I mean, it sounds good, healthy.
It does sound healthy. It does, and it is. But yeah.
What are you trying to say? I'm not healthy.
Where I'm like, give me candy.
We're not doing healthy here.
Look, if it makes anybody feel any better, I would trade any one of you right now. Everybody. So.
Well, thank you guys for being here, and all of us are enjoying stuff tonight, be it healthy or candy or whatever it may be. But I am super excited to talk about the film that we are talking about tonight. We are talking about the new movie in the Evil Dead franchise, Evil Dead Rise. Derrick and I last week went over the plethora of the rest of them. But this week we are jumping into this brand new one. Now, before we get into the movie and everything, because there's a lot to jump into here, I want to know from Anastasia and Lonny, what were you guys' thoughts of like the franchise as a whole so far, and what were you guys' expectations going into Evil Dead Rise? We'll start with you on this one, Anastasia.
I mean, I grew up watching them, so I have a fondness for them. I also am more of a as I like the original, but I really, really respect the gore level that they brought in the newer versions. It grew with me, and it grew with my taste. So I had I have fond memories, I will say, of the whole franchise. And while it's not like my, like Nightmare on Elm Street is always going to be my messed with my brain one, or Candyman is always my heart. This is a fond memory that I grew up with, and I love watching, and I get excited every time they do something to the franchise. And I was very, very excited about these like, I guess the scariness of the trailer really got me really, really excited.
Mhm.
So I think that was my expectation walking into it, was just that we were going to get a really scary, gory movie. And I feel like we don't get that all the time now. I was excited for it.
At least
Yeah,
not
no, I agree
mainstream.
with you. Yeah. Yeah, no, but I agree with you. Like, that trailer scared the crap out of me. But what I appreciate about what this movie did was they didn't give it all away in the trailer. So
Right.
that's what I liked. Lonnie, what were your thoughts about like the franchise as a whole and expectations going into this new one?
It's a franchise that's always been big with me since the first one. Growing up and having some friends and a family member who were really big into horror, as I've spoke about before. I saw the first Evil Dead movie I saw was Evil Dead 2, and then I saw Evil Dead 1 after that, and prefer Evil Dead 2 as a lot of people do. Evil Dead 1 is great, but it's so low budget that it just kind of fits in the category.
Mhm.
But yeah, I grew up with them and I love them, and I always had a respect for Sam Raimi and Rob Tapert for them, and I've always been excited about any of the new iterations that they've done. The 2013 version to me just stands out as a cut above the rest as far as like scary and gory goes. I think it really grabbed on to the concept that the boys were originally going for, and using the new technology that we had to just make it brutal. And I think that's what I really enjoyed about it, and that's what I was excited about with this movie. This movie, just from the trailer alone, I was like, okay, this looks like I'm gonna enjoy sitting in the dark and throwing popcorn in my face and watching everything just kind of unfold. And yeah, I've been really excited about it. I've seen it 3 times already, and yeah, that's my life with the Evil Dead.
Nice. I'm right there with you. I've already seen it twice. Definitely, everybody out there, I suggest you go with somebody who gets really scared, because it's hilarious to sit there and watch them.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I was by myself, but there was a few couples that were sitting behind me, and just hearing one partner or the other just screaming their brains out at something just always gets me hyped. I love it. Whether it's a guy just being like, "Oh, what the fuck," or some girl screaming her brains out. It's always just exciting for me. I just eat my popcorn and just enjoy.
No, like, I went with my roommates the first night. I went opening night, and then we went with a friend who couldn't go. And the whole movie, she just sat there and was like, "Oh my god, oh my god!" Screamed. Popcorn flew at one point. It was hilarious.
I didn't experience that. I went with my mom, who is my gateway drug into horror movies, and so we just laugh and we just enjoy the gore.
You have to enjoy the gore. I mean, she enjoys the gore too, but she's super scaredy cat. It's hilarious. Derrick, I know we talked about like the franchise last week, but what were your expectations going into this new one, The Evil Dead Rise?
Yeah, I think I always think about like intention and just purposefulness. Like, those are always big things, especially when you go to revisit a franchise that has so many gaps in between when they release the new iterations, and it has just such a checkered and colored history where it's so. I think we talked about it on the show, but this is not. You think of Evil Dead as a franchise, and then you actually start breaking it down, and it doesn't really exist in the way that you think franchises exist. So, from the trailers, I was like, wow, they're leaning back into what we saw in 2013. There seems to be a lot of good things going here. So I was genuinely excited for this movie. I have seen it, obviously, but I did only see it once. I wrote a review for it, but I'm excited to talk about it. I think there's a lot to unpack, and not all of it is good, but they do some things very, very well. And I truly hope that, as Raimi and Campbell have said, since they served as producers on this one, they've said they want to start doing this every 2 to 3 years instead of 7 to 10. And my hope is that they take the strengths from the things that they've done from 2013 and now 2023, and just start building that into kind of next iterations. So
I completely agree. That's exactly what I look forward to, and seeing more of these in the future, especially now that they have kind of made connective tissue between all of the movies.
Yeah, and they've left us
made
with breadcrumbs.
Yeah,
for future
breadcrumbs and kind of an expanded universe type of thing that I think is going to leave them with the right writers. I think is going to really lead them down a good path if we can keep up the good work.
Yep.
Yeah, no, completely agree with you. So I'm going to break down the movie a little bit. I'm going to give the Rotten Tomatoes review or like description of it because they actually have the best description of it, sadly enough. But this film is the 5th Evil Dead film in the franchise. It says a road-weary Beth pays an overdue visit to her older sister Ellie, who is raising 3 kids on her own in a cramped alley apartment. The sisters' reunion is cut short by the discovery of a mysterious book deep in the bowels of Ellie's building, giving rise to a flesh-possessing demon and thrusting Beth into a primal battle for survival as she is faced with the most nightmarish version of motherhood imaginable. Now, I really did like that. What were your guys' popcorn ratings for this? Like, what did you overall think about this film, and why? I'll go ahead and start. I gave it a 4. I really enjoyed the fact that they took it out of just being at the cabin, and like. We'll leave the third one out of it for this one, but I like how they took it out of the cabin and put it into a major city that this can still happen. And the fact that there's several other people in this building and this is happening on one floor and you're getting scared, the shit scared out of you still. I loved it. I love the gore. I love the practical effects, the cinematography, the acting. Like there's some things with the actors I had issue with sometimes. But overall, I did enjoy this movie, so I did have to give it a 4. We will go with you next, Anastasia, on your popcorn rating and why. Go ahead.
I gave it a 3.5, which is usually I try to do like 3.5, 4 if I really like, because I'm like, there's always room to improve. Let's be harsh. But I really liked it. I loved the gore level. I thought the visuals were amazing. I do think for setting it in LA, it's not quite the visual setting that I thought LA would be as a LA local and born and raised. I think, every single person not being from America also kind of like, I definitely picked up on some accents that threw me off a few times in the lead, which they were great, amazing actors, but there was just like some cadence stuff that I was just very like, no, we don't, no.
Especially from LA, we don't talk like that.
Yeah, we don't talk like that. And I don't know, like, I'm very protective of my city too, in a way that I'm like, we have such a gory, like, weird history. And I wish in some ways they had leaned more into that at when they said it there. That would be my major complaint about it. But overall, I had so much fun. I can't tell you how many people I've just been like telling about the eyeball thing that happened. I just keep telling people, like, I'm like, oh, you don't like horror movies? Well, listen to this. I just keep telling people because I love it so much. It's just beautiful. Finally, we're not doing some ankle thing. We're doing some weird eyeball thing, which is what we need to do. So I think that's that. Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel about it. I like it.
Oh yeah, they definitely updated the gore and the kills, even though the eyeball thing was in Evil Dead 2 as well.
Right, but
they did update.
But another thing that I really liked about it that I should note before I is the female heavy like concepts that a lot of me and my friends are probably going through about like the struggle at a certain age about motherhood, whether we should, whether we shouldn't, and watching all these different layers of motherhood play out in horrific ways.
In the worst ways possible.
In the worst ways possible, but also in like our own very visceral fears. Was very interesting and scary. Very scary.
Yeah. We'll go on to you, Lonny. What was your popcorn rating and why did you give it this?
I gave it a 3. It's not my. I kind of middle grounded it there. It's not my favorite, and it's not my least favorite. I think they had the potential to go a little further, and I feel like they maybe pulled back a little bit. And that was kind of disappointing. I was hoping for a little bit more over the topness, like the 2013 version, because the 2013 version is just brutal. Everything about it is brutal. But there are things that I really did enjoy. But I did like a lot of the things that they did do practically, and some of the gore was really great. One of the things that I also really did like it, despite the fact that it was supposed to be, LA, and it didn't really feel like it. What I did like was, even though they didn't do it in a cabin, they did it in this rundown apartment building after an earthquake. It made it feel just as claustrophobic. It made it feel like they were still in this enclosed, can't get out space. They did a really good job of kind of like shutting them into the area that they were at, and giving you that feeling of, and filming it, even just a lot of the shots, a lot of the pans and everything were made to feel like you're in a very tight spot with all of this terrible stuff going on. That apartment, as big as it probably was, seemed like it was like a one-room studio by the end of that movie.
Yeah.
And that made it even more terrifying, because you're like, where are you supposed to hide? What are you supposed to do? Which I really liked. I did have some problems, just some of the performances were just like, okay. But I mean, it's never been a franchise with good performances, so I can't really knock it too much on that. But I think cinematography was amazing. I think the gore was great for what we got. I think they just could have pushed it a little bit farther, and I was a little disappointed on how kind of withdrawn some of it was. One of the big things was, I really wanted somebody to lose a limb.
Yes, this is the first Evil Dead in the entire franchise where nobody has lost a limb.
Yeah,
lost an eyeball, but not a limb.
Yeah.
You got a cheese grater, for crying out loud. Let's do this.
Yeah, we'll get to the cheese grater. But that was one of my major issues was the apartment, because they walked into that building with that big apartment. Like you said, Lonny, it got smaller throughout when it was going, and made it feel more claustrophobic. But they walked into that apartment, and I was like, how much, as a single mother of 3, are you paying for this damn apartment? Because I lived in LA in several apartments, and I didn't have that. So,
right.
Well, to be fair, it was condemned.
No, I lived in like a crappy building, and I still didn't have that.
I mean, it looked like the Hotel Cecil, and like,
yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Derrick, the chat actually, hello Q, is very excited to hear what your popcorn rating for this movie and why. So go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So so my review I wrote for nerdbot.com. I actually gave it a 4 out of 5 in my actual review, coming fresh off of it. But strangely, in our conversation from the week prior, having rewatched Evil Dead 2013, and then discussing that one as kind of our key topic, I agree with the brutality of 2013 is. I didn't realize how much it was lacking until I went back and rewatched the 2013 version, and you just don't feel just the like, this one is mean and it's nasty, but it's not nearly as mean and nasty as it could have been. And 2013 is just it's just it's viscerally assaulting, and just you feel every single person, whether you like them or not, you feel their damage and their pain, and they're just the doom that they had the minute they set foot into this cabin. So overall, I've actually, the longer I've sat with this movie, I've actually dropped it down a whole point. I actually agree a lot with what, some of the things that Lonny said, where I just feel like they could have gone further, and I think there was a roadmap that was built for that. just kind of across the board. And, they have the technology, they have the ability. I think there are some terrific performances. And then I think there's some kind of flat performances where, I think one of the things that makes the Evil Dead franchise it birthed so much longevity is not just Bruce Campbell, but you create a hero like Ash. Like, obviously, Ash and Bruce Campbell are, inextricably tied. You can't separate them. But Evil Dead is known for creating a hero that you just can't wait to root for, regardless of what happens to them, right? Whether or not they survive, you're just kind of like, no, I'm invested in this person. And I didn't feel that in this one. I truthfully didn't really care about anybody. Like, the only one I really cared about was the little girl, like the youngest child. And even then it was kind of like, well, if she turns into a deadite, I don't really care. So they didn't do enough for me to really invest in the heroes and root for their survival. However, I do really enjoy the cinematography. I think there's some just absolutely incredible shots, the way they frame some of those special effects, and some of those practical effects. The physicality of the mother is just absolutely fantastic. Some of the best in the franchise, like by far and away. And I love the claustrophobia. I think you're absolutely right. Like, the longer the film goes on, I love the cat, by the way. The longer the film goes on, it gets more and more claustrophobic, where you feel that tightness as if you're in a cabin. I think the move to go to an apartment building and remove it from the cabin, I think, is a smart move. I really like that. I think there's something just already kind of daunting and haunting and unsettling about shady apartments. That really just resonates with people when they go to view it. Anybody that's ever lived in a shitty apartment kind of knows what that dread feels like. And especially if you're in a high rise, like, every floor feels like it might as well be its own universe. And so recreating that, I think, is great. Personally, I think you shouldn't have even bothered to set it in LA. Like, it's just a condemned apartment complex in any city, any random city. It doesn't matter what it is. And I think that would have worked better.
I think that was the problem I had with it being set in Los Angeles. I was like, if you set it in an iconic city like New York, San Francisco, any of these places, you've got to bring in some of that weird mythology. I think there was so many like chances to be like, okay, an earthquake, yes, great, an earthquake, oh okay, but also we had weird spiritualism movements and all kinds of stuff that you could have tied into it. And I just was like,
cults,
or cults
and murder, and like, it just like
the
so serial killers, like,
I was like, let me have something, that was the only thing I was
so I agree. So I think it's I think it's good, but I do think that it could be better. And I actually turned out to have more misgivings about it than I thought. The longer removed I am from it, truthfully, the less I liked it. But that's not enough. I would still recommend this movie to anybody that's like, oh, is it a good Evil Dead movie? Yeah, absolutely. Like, absolutely. Go see it. There's a lot to enjoy. But I would probably agree with Lonny. I'd put it as one of my least favorite in the whole franchise.
Yeah. If I'm going to recommend Star Wars to somebody, I'm not going to start them off on Attack of the Clones.
Right.
No.
You are? I love all the movies, but there are ones that I can honestly say are not great. I'm not going to start somebody off on one of those.
Yeah.
It's
well, I think it would be hard to start somebody off in the Evil Dead franchise with this. You're not getting the pure essence of the Evil Dead franchise.
I agree. And you need context. You need context to things that you do. Again, it would be the same as like me starting you off on Attack of the Clones. There's no context to anything else. You have no idea what's going on.
No, you're just thrown in.
You start,
No. And also nothing happens in that movie. So
there's also that.
Well, this one, we are going to get into the story a little bit and dive deeper into that. Like, they start off at the cabin, like every other Evil Dead, with kind of a backstory.
I liked that with the opening a little bit.
Hands down, one of the best title card openings I've ever seen in my entire life. That shit is absolutely fire. But when that started, I was like, oh, this is the movie we're into? Okay, I'm ready. Give me my popcorn. Let's go.
Can I tell you the most surprising thing for me was, like, we wanted to be like, that guy's a douchebag. But he, as soon as he saw his girl in trouble, was like, whoop, whoop. And I was like, all right.
Well, and that's where we started. We started with Teresa, Caleb, and Jessica. out at a cabin, everything like that. Caleb, you kind of get the douchey like bro vibe from him. Teresa, kind of just like the bookworm, maybe the like loner friend, and then we don't really meet Jessica. Don't really get to know her. Once we see her, we realize, oh, this bitch is possessed. Like, y'all need to run.
Immediately.
Then we get the whole scalping from Jessica to Teresa, which
So
was
nasty. I love it.
so nasty, so good.
Oh,
Then we go back onto the dock, and Jessica gets her face into the freaking drone and falls into the pool. We see Caleb's jump in and get his head torn off, and then that title card of her just flying out of the water, and then Evil Dead Rises with the epic music behind them. What did you think about the whole beginning part of it? Do you think it fit in with Evil Dead? Did you love the title card? I know you did, Derrick. We'll start with you on this one, actually.
Yeah, so I think in context of the film, I actually don't like it because it already sets the precedent for what is going to happen later. And then to me, having completed the film, I felt like it removes everything that's going to, like, there's no suspense of what's going to happen. Like, we already know that whatever it is they do, this is doomed from the start, which is fine. But like, if you're going to do that, you got to do the Ari Aster thing and make us feel like they're all going to survive. But the fact that you start with this amazing title card, which in and of itself is like some of the best parts of Evil Dead, hands down. But the minute it does one day earlier, you're like, oh, okay. So no matter what happens in this scenario, that demon makes it out of this and it possesses somebody else and then has now escaped whatever goes on in this complex. So to me, I felt like it sets the wrong precedent for the rest of the film, but isolated, that's Evil Dead to me. Like, everything that happens in that opening is everything I've ever wanted from an Evil Dead film from start to finish. Like, that whole first 5 minutes and the title card, like, I can't get that image out of my head of her just rising out of the water, and as she rises, you just see Evil Dead rise. Like, it's fucking cinematography, felt like no notes, fucking perfection. Like, it's so good.
Oh yeah, no, I actually was supposed to have that in my background, but couldn't get it to work. But I think that is the most beautiful title card of a movie I have ever seen, hands down. Like, brilliantly shot, epic music, the way that, like, just chef's kiss. Anastasia, what did you think about this first like 5-10 minutes of the film?
I mean, I loved it. I loved just visuals in general. Like, I love this new cabin so much. I love it so much. It's so Pinterest bougie, and yet they just like made sure there was the most amount of gore in this crazy, like, beautiful, iconic, cabin. So I loved that. I thought it was great bookending for me, and I think it's because, like, I get so like, as a writer myself, writing these like in these formulatic ways that we're kind of like told to write in horror. This was really fun because it was like, yeah, everyone is doomed, so now let's see how we got there. Like, I just kind of was like, boom, they did. Boom, the world's doomed. You want to see how they got doomed? Let's go. Like, that was fun for me because I think it was a little bit of a unique take, but I completely understand the other aspect of it where it was like kind of like blowing your load in the first 5 minutes. And sometimes you just kind of need to like sustain. So pace it out. But I didn't mind it. I was like, whoa, blast to the face, we're great, let's go. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it was beautiful. It made me feel like how Dread made me feel in that, like, beautiful gore moments.
Nice. And Lonny, what were your thoughts about this first sequence?
I agree with Anastasia on this as well. Like, I agree all across the board. It's probably one of the best title card sequences ever, if not it probably top 5. It had everything that a title card needed in a film. But I also agree with the bookending of it. I think it sets a precedent, which I wanted. You get the feeling immediately from this oh shit, we're coming right out the gate.
Mhm.
Like you know, okay, everything is already fucked. And then you get to enjoy the ride to see how you got there. Which again, agreeing with Anastasia, I do this a lot in my tabletop games when I'm telling a story, is the characters in my games, they know what's up already from the beginning. They know what's coming. They know what the end game is, who the bad guy is, and how evil he is. Now they get to play it out and find out exactly what they're getting themselves into. And that's what I enjoyed. I enjoyed as soon as that was over, she came up out of the water, I was in. I was like, this is great. Let's go into the actual story and see how we got here. Also, on top of that as well, again, agreeing with the cabin, is I just like the idea of this new bougie cabin. And in my mind, I just want to see what these Deadites can do to this bougie cabin and just make it disgusting and broken and run down in the matter of like a couple nights.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Anytime, this is what I've learned from watching horror. Anytime you have a cabin that does this, shit's about to go down.
Oh yeah.
The weird white people calling.
Yeah, the near church steeple in a cabin, you're fucked. Like, there's nothing you can do. Doesn't matter how nice it
white
is.
people. Weird stuff. If there's a pointy cabin, get out of there.
If it looks like a face with a pointy hat, you're in trouble.
Yep. Someone's about to burn.
know
that.
Well, what I did appreciate about like this beginning of it is, one, it takes place in the daytime that everybody dies.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Like, and not rainy, like roads are flooded, you can't get out, just like perfect. You're having fun at the water, like this is a nice bougie cabin, like, and then you're gonna die and the demon stays there.
Which is also a good testament to the effects as well.
Yeah.
That's something you don't get a lot of, because effects always look better in the dark.
Yep.
But if you're
it's one of my favorite horror kind of subversions is when you can do brutality and horror in the light. That to me is just an example of just incredible horror filmmaking, because you're not trying to hide things with dark colors and raining and like, because really that's the yes, we're all scared of the dark, but like the fact that the demon can take you in the day, like you're not safe in sunlight, to me is even more terrifying. And I love that this scene did that. So
yeah, because there's this like trope that like if you make it through the night, you're fine.
Yes.
If you're just in the light, you're fine. And I love when it's like, nope. Like, oh, they made it through the night. Oh, they're fine. Nope, that's exactly when they get murdered. Like, love
the
it.
whole like Wuthering Heights reading and then her falling and just like that, pulling the ponytail and helping her. I was just like, oh my god. Like
that's because she was reading Wuthering Heights. Nobody's reading that. You're not reading that. Not.
Some people try.
I mean, I've read it, but you know, this girl with the glamping experience is not reading Wuthering Heights anywhere.
No, you know that girl was gonna read Eat, Pray, Love, and sit there by the water. That's what she really wanted to read, not Wuthering Heights.
Right. Read it. She's just gonna watch the TikTok review. Come on.
But
just real quick, was one of the things that I liked about it too, especially with that scene during the day, is it subverts kind of the concept that was in the Evil Dead movies as well, is the whole Dead by Dawn thing. Yeah, which Dead by Dawn has become synonymous throughout horror movies. Right. You just got to make it through the night. Yeah, you know, there's even a video game. You know, Dead by Dawn. Dead by Dawn, that is literally, you just have to survive the countdown while the killer is chasing you. Yeah. And what this does is show it doesn't really matter. We're telling you you're dead by dawn because that's really how much time you have left. Yeah. It doesn't matter if the sun comes up, we're still going to get you. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that makes it even more terrifying, is that they're not bound by anything, and we haven't ever really seen them be bound by anything.
Yeah, but yet we have this perception that they are, and that's what I loved about this opening, is that it tells you straight up from the get-go, like you can throw all of that out the window. Whatever you think you're bringing to this the sun is not the savior, and it's still good. Like, you're putting these arbitrary restrictions on supernatural entities that don't adhere to your timescape. So,
which has always been the case in the movies too, is as they've tried to apply some logical answer to something that's not logical.
Right.
Oh yeah. I mean, all of us as horror fans go into a horror movie like that. Like, oh, daylight's going to come. They're going to be fine. No, this demon's going to be stuck here if they kill it, and we're going to be fine. And this movie broke it all in the first couple of minutes.
Yeah.
But we are going to move into Los Angeles. Beth, we have this weird little scene with her at a concert, and we find out she's pregnant, which I really didn't care about because I didn't know who she was. So she goes, and we meet Ellie, Danny, Bridget, and Cassie living in an apartment. Ellie, from what I guess, is a tattoo artist, even though, like my roommate said, that tattoo gun was not loaded correctly and should not have used that gun.
Maybe that's why she's living in that apartment. She's not a very good tattoo artist.
Yeah. Maybe it was like an antique she kept repairing. Like, let it go, honey.
my roommate heard that and she was like, nope, don't ever touch anybody with that. What is she doing? But we get there, we meet them. And Beth and Ellie are going to have a conversation that Ellie's husband leaves them. She sends Danny, Bridget, and Cassie out to go get pizza. During this time, big earthquake happens. Hole opens up in the bottom of this building, and Danny decides to go investigate and comes across crosses hanging everywhere, a mirror, a casket with crosses on it, and everything like that. And he finds the newest version of the Necronomicon with teeth and skin, and decides to take it back up to his room and play these records where, like, this book is evil, don't do this. Then he plays a second record where it reads the chant, and his mother gets possessed in the elevator. Then all shit kind of breaks loose from there. She goes back into the apartment and freaks them out. They think she's dead. Put her on the bed, and then she attacks them again. There's the whole bathroom thing to where she's burning up, and they put her in the bathtub, and she comes back out, and that's where she says the great line, "Mommy's with the maggots." And then we get through it to where they push her out they're scared of her because she's gonna attack them. The neighbors come in, and this is where she ends up attacking Jake, the somewhat neighbor little boyfriend, Scott, the younger neighbor, Gabriel, the neighbor, and Mr. Fonda, who's the old crabby guy down the hall, and kills them all in the hallway, which we kind of miss all of their deaths. We see them, but we don't. And then we're just stuck in this apartment with Beth, Danny, Bridget, and Cassie. What were your guys' thoughts on this progression of her turning? Did you like the elevator scene where the wires wrapped around her and kind of like fucked her up? What were your thoughts on this? We'll start with you on this one, Lonny. I know I kind of jumped. But
no, it's fine. I have a lot of ups and downs when it comes to the kind of beginning sequence of how this all sets up. I think it was a little rushed. I think certain choices didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but that is what it is. There's a concept. There's a concept that I love, especially in horror movies, is there's two worlds that exist. There's a world in horror movies. There is the world in horror movies where horror movies exist, and there's a world of horror movies where horror movies do not exist. Evil Dead has always been a world where horror movies do not exist because the choices that people make would not happen if any of these kids had ever seen a horror movie before, or if any of these people had seen a horror movie before. You've got other worlds, Scream being one of them, which is literally a meta idea of horror movies exist, and this is still happening. But here's people who make smarter decisions and still get killed.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that different break there.
I mean, Scream franchise is perfect aspect to that. They know, right. And then they still do.
Right, exactly. I love the elevator scene. I think the elevator scene was great. I think it was an opening of some good brutality. The breaking, the sound engineering on that was great. I could have used it to be a little more brutal, but I think it was still pretty brutal on its own. I was incredibly disappointed by how the whole hallway scene kind of just breaks down barely in front of your eyes. It's mostly off screen. With my earlier disappointment of nobody really getting dismembered, there is a dismemberment. You don't even get to see it. You just see the body slide across the floor without his arms. I'm like, that would have been a great gory scene of like seeing his arms get torn off. And of course, the bathtub scene is amazing to me. Just a feat of the acrobatics, the stunt work for it.
I do have to give Alyssa Sutherland great props on that, because she was the girl flipping out of that bathtub, actually doing the backbending and everything. Mm-hmm. Give her props 100%.
Yeah. I can't think of her name. The actress who played the mom.
Alyssa Sutherland. Yeah.
Was it Alyssa Sutherland? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
On top of that, and the flexibility and the acrobatics that she was doing, the makeup combined with the smile that she has, that Joker-esque ear-to-ear toothy grin, was so creepy. I could have that on a t-shirt and wear it. Just her face with her head slightly down, just the shadow. Yeah. This face, or even like that.
That face.
Yep.
Yeah.
Open up now. So good. So good.
Just the size of her mouth and the teeth and the grin and just the angles of her face and everything. I mean, she's absolutely beautiful, but you add that makeup and just that sinister to it, that Kubrick look, as they call it, just added to the evilness of it and just had me locked in. I just wanted to stare at her every time she was on the screen, which I think was great. Most of my disappointment was like, I think they could have made finding the book a little less clunky. I felt it was just kind of a little too ex machina.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it is what it is. And that's pretty much where I'm at on that. Is like there was some great stuff in there, and that hallway scene I think was the first example of like they could have pushed it a little bit farther, and they didn't. They gave us just kind of a cop out.
Okay, I see that. Derrick, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, I largely agree with Lonny, to be honest. I think most of his criticisms are pretty aligned with mine. I think there are, I take a lot of issue when we've already established that we don't need these massive eye rolls. And again, just it's hard to not compare this to the 2013 version, because having rewatched it, like it does so many good things in this, especially in this regard, where the reason they're at the cabin is purposeful. The guy, even though Erric, who's the one that reads it in the 2013 version,
I'm so ashamed to share a name.
But even though, like, yes, he induces a lot of eye rolls, and you have a lot of like, bro, just close the goddamn book. Like, you have a lot of that.
Right.
There's something about his just kind of nerdiness and just overall character where, like, if anybody is going to fuck this up, it's going to be this guy. And he's doing it out of curiosity, and it's not just out of sheer naivety. And while Evil Dead as a whole probably functions as a way of people don't read horror movies, they go kind of out of their way in that one to really be like, dude, just put that shit away. Nobody has a good feeling about this. And he's going off in secret out of his own ignorance and curiosity to try to create it. And then that's what brings the dread in. And here, it does feel clunky. It feels very like, yeah, horror doesn't exist in this world. Therefore, this dumb kid crawls into a hole, finds all this spooky shit that literally tells you to keep out. Like, there's a reason this is buried. There's a reason none of this should be ever unearthed. And you're still like, oh, there's a record. Like, bro, come on. Like, that's it. It doesn't add up to me, and it just doesn't feel justified. It doesn't feel logical. And I don't need necessarily horror, and I don't even need Evil Dead to be logical. But this one already stretches and really forces you to kind of suspend belief that somebody would actually go down into this hole, uncover all the shit, bring the book up with the records, and then play them back to back. It was just kind of like, yeah, this is not how it's going to happen. So that felt really off to me.
To me, there's an element that later on with playing the records and reading the book, I think could have been used better in telling that better.
Yeah.
When the records basically removed the kid's agency from actually reading it. It was the records. It was once the record had started playing, it just continued to play. Yeah. And there was nothing that he could do. I think that removing of the agency made it a little scarier and made the stakes a little bit better.
Yeah.
Him getting them in I wish there was just a better way he would have gotten a hold of those.
Yeah, I agree.
Like maybe finding the records in like a thrift store or the record store.
Sure. Yeah,
or
absolutely.
If it was an old decrepit building, maybe the earthquake like shook something loose and they like fell from like a ceiling or a wall,
right.
And then
they're built into the floor. Yeah. So I agree.
The Tomb Raider-iness of it.
It just doesn't feel right, and it's clunky, but it's too long, and it just. I already am not invested in any of these people, so their discovery and whatever befalls to them. Like, I remember when he was down there in that tomb, I was like, I hope you're the first one to die, because I don't care about you. Like, I'm perfectly fine with you being the first one to get the deadite treatment.
Once the kid had the book and started playing the records, I'm like, I don't care if this kid dies.
Yeah, I was like, I don't give a shit about you.
He deserves it at this point.
Yeah,
I do have to stand up for Danny a little bit, because he is probably the only person throughout the Evil Dead franchise as a whole who actually felt remorseful of what he did. And you can tell
that's true. That is true. So real quick, going into the elevator scene, I thought that was really good. I agree. It could have been even more brutal. Again, I have to be very cautious with my words. I am not advocating for full-on violation. I'm not craving that in my horror film. However, as we talked about in the 2013 version, there is an invasiveness of this possession that Evil Dead has done very, very well, and they've done it with a lot of care, where it's not just a possession, it is it's invasive, it's overtaken.
It's a violation.
It's a literal violation, and I don't necessarily need you to have the you don't need to go as far as penetration as it's done previously, but I didn't really feel, I don't know, it just didn't feel as brutal. It's filmed very well, and again, the acrobatics and the physicality of Liz Sutherland is just phenomenal, and she does that scene amazing. But it does kind of speak to your point as we get later on, where it's just not far enough. Like, you have all the wherewithal and all the runway to just do what you want, man. Like, no one's telling you to hold back here. We're all here for this. And it just constantly felt like Fede Alvarez was like holding something. And I'm not exactly sure. The hallway scene is a great example. It's a cool shot that robs you of brutality, of violence, of limbs, of just some of the most brutal deaths in the film are seen through this keyhole. And I'm fine with the creativity, but you are taking us away from the things that we came here for. If you show up to an Evil Dead film, you show up to see brutality. So if you rob us of that, well, yeah, you're going to kind of, I don't know. It just didn't have that. So, but I can't give enough props to Sutherland. She is one of the best Deadite villains I've ever seen. Like, that woman is relishing in being just a vile, possessed demon woman, and I am here for it. Like, she doesn't have a bad scene. Like, every time she's on screen, I'm like, dude, just let her run through everybody. I don't care about anybody in this one. I'm rooting for the Deadites on this one. Like,
yeah. So before I get to you, Anastasia, Nom Talk Network has redeemed Hydrate. So cheers, everybody.
Oh, there it is. It disappeared in the background.
It did. It constantly does that when I have these. Like, I have to like move around. I find like here's the perfect spot. But we are coming towards the end of this. I want to get through the rest of this movie and also talk about this cast. So from the elevator scene and people dying in the hallway, we see the daughter, Bridget, get turned into a deadite by her mother with the tattoo on the face and her licking it, and then her in the kitchen eating the wine glass and attacking her brother. Then there's the infamous cheese grater scene with Beth. That, oh my god, when I saw that, I was just like, it's not like bloody or gory. It's just like, oh my god, like you can feel that. At least
it was goopy. That's what I like about it. Because having seen it 3 times, you see chunks.
Oh yeah, no, I saw seeing it the 2 times. I was like, that part really affected me.
Yeah.
But then we go from that to Beth listening to the record again and Ellie getting back into the house. I do want to say, even though I didn't like Cassie because she opened the door and almost let her mom in, I did like Staffina that she created. That's probably one of my favorite characters in this thing, even though it was just a Barbie doll head on a stick. Danny dying, didn't feel bad about, but then Beth and Cassie get into the hallway and try to break down the door after killing Bridget with fire, stabbing Danny, all of that. They get into the hallway and they get into the elevator, which fills with blood, and everybody's kind of outside. Then we get down to the lower parking lot, and it does that wonderful Kubrick Shining opening moment of them just falling out of this elevator.
That was a great cross between like The Shining and like The Evil Dead 2, where it's just blood everywhere.
That's actually from things that I've read, what they were actually trying to emulate was that exact thing, which they did very well. They get into the parking garage, and the beast of Beth, Danny, and Bridget, the multi-formed mush that they are, attack them, and they get shoved.
Family.
A family. They attack them, and they get put in a wood chipper. And the wood chipper does the bloody rain everywhere in the parking garage. And even though I would have liked Cassie to die, Beth and Cassie finally get away. And then we see that then the demon goes into Jessica, and that's how we start off our movie. I want to get your feelings about the end of this movie, and also all of this cast that we've been spending a lot of time with. Beth, who was Lily Sullivan, Allie, Elisa Sutherland, Danny, Morgan Davis, who is a trans Australian actor, which I was very impressed that they did this. Bridget, Gabrielle Eccles, and Cassie Nell Fisher. What were your thoughts on the cast, and what was your thoughts about the ending of this movie? We'll start with you on this one, Derrick.
I have highs and lows. It's very kind of up and down. I think there's a lot of really good things that happen. I don't know how the monster sits with me in the end. It feels I don't know, for something that's so practical and so grounded, for something so supernatural, this idea of like a mega deadite, it just felt off. I don't know. It felt really weird, and I like the idea of something darker coming from the depths. That to me, like, again, going back to the 2013 version where it's the abomination that is birthed out of the dirt and, feels like a true hellspawn, coming up.
Well, I do have to stop you because apparently from what I've read, and I mentioned it last week, there are 3 versions of the Necronomicon. The first version we saw in Evil Dead 2. The second version we saw in the 2013 version, which brought Abomination, and the third version is what comes out of this book. So that's what it is.
Which I don't like. I don't care for it. I don't know. To me, it just doesn't fit right. And the fact that there's a wood chipper in a condemned building that still powers on in an abandoned parking lot, like, it was just like, the fuck are we doing? Like, what is this? This is a really far way to try to get more blood going on. It looks cool, but I was just kind of like, yeah, okay. So I think when we talk about book endings and we talk about how it starts and how it ends, the thing that really bothered me that doesn't sell it, I want to make sure I get your perspective on this too, because I feel like I've talked too much. But the bookends, what bothers me is that the solution, and maybe it's just the book or the Bible, but this is why we need a Bible and we need a little bit more of recurrence. All of the Evil Dead films, good or bad, it doesn't matter what iteration they are, all of them seem to have a makeshift solution as to how to overcome their demon, right? Whether it's you have to bury someone alive and, you know, kill the dead so that they can raise up, whether it's taking a face with a chainsaw, like there's always a ritual. There's always something that needs to be done. And what really irritated me about this as it pertains to how it opens and how it ends is the solution is you just run away. And that to me just felt like, what? Like we're already setting the precedent story-wise. We're already setting the precedent that everybody here dies, right? Like that's the cue that no matter what you do, you're all doomed from the start. But then the idea of how to survive is just, yeah, you just run away. You just make it out of the parking lot and everything's fine, and then the demon will leave you alone. And it's like, but that's not really what is supposed to be happening here. Like there's a genuine pursuit. And so to me, it felt really lazy as the longer it went on. So I don't know, those kinds of things really bothered me. I think they're done rather well, but overall execution wise and narrative wise, it didn't really sit with me. The casting, I think, is pretty solid. Again, I think Sutherland, champion. Everybody else, they do a great job with what they're given. I don't think they're given enough. I don't feel like Beth is a comparable hero to somebody like Ash or even Mia. Like even Mia, I think Mia is somebody that I would champion. Like if she showed up in a sequel, like I'd be all about it, girl. Snap, like put that chainsaw on and let's go. Like I'd absolutely root for her. If Beth entered into another Evil Dead, I literally would not give a shit. Like I don't care enough about her or her survival. So there just wasn't enough investment for the characters overall. And that's not on anybody. I think they do a lot of creative things, and I think they're all genuinely having a lot of fun. I loved the ghost type of thing where she's in the sheet and she comes out. Like that to me is like peak Evil Dead, where it's terrifying, but it's also kind of fucking silly. And like, I love that kind of stuff is the things that I absolutely love. I think she does a brilliant job. So yeah, overall, I think to me, the standout is really Sutherland. Everybody else is just kind of hit or miss. I think they're only able to maximize what they're given on paper, and they're not given enough to really elevate and show their talents. So.
Okay. I definitely see what you're doing. For the running away thing, having dated in LA and New York and knowing a lot of millennials, that's the things today. So they're right on track with that. But Anastasia, really quickly, what are your thoughts on the end of this movie and the cast?
I really wanted the little girl to pick up the chainsaw. I'm not gonna lie. I do think the cast was like I was just like, please. But it didn't happen. I like the cast. I do think, you know, again, like I was saying earlier, there's a little lost in translation about the culture, I think, that bothered me a little bit. But yeah, I thought the ending was fun. I will say, just like I will agree with you about the brutality level of the elevator. Only because I think possession is such a sexual. There's always like a sexual element to like being invaded, especially when you're talking about women, motherhood, their bodies, and all of this stuff that is happening to these two women and has gone through these two women. There was levels that they almost they touched on, but they didn't quite like want to put their hand completely on the fire. And I get it because it's a different climate and we're trying to like dance that, but I do think they danced it a little too much. And I think there is some creative ways to make just motherhood and being a woman. There's enough analogies there to really feel invaded.
I think I agree completely. I think really there was more of that.
And there was something about like there could have been a strength in leaving at that time, in the way she did, to become more mothering and to become, and I think they were trying to touch on that, but they didn't fully embrace the fact that she was like, I am a mom now. These are my children, the children unborn, and the one that kind of like stand was not clearly taken, but I think it was like touched on. And I think that would have solidified the reason she left 100% more.
Yeah, I agree.
Lonny, what are your final thoughts quickly about all of
this? Final thoughts. I have some disagreement just in the fact of and in the overarching kind of scope of things. I loved the Chekhov's tree shredder. It showed up in the beginning in the parking lot. They just kind of focused on it for a second. I'm like, that's how it's going to end. Right? It's going to be a gory mess, and I'm here for it. But I agree. Character-wise, I don't really think you got a chance to really get to know anybody enough to care about where they were going. And Beth, I think, had the potential to become a character that would be the Ash type character or the Mia type character, but they didn't really do anything with it. She just kind of like was in the background for most of it, and then just all of a sudden picked up a chainsaw and decided to go at it. And I just don't feel like it was earned. Like I don't feel like she didn't get the opportunity to do what I think there was room for there. I also agree with Anastasia. I think that they should have really focused on a lot more of like the horrors that come from motherhood and the ideals of it and what it can, what it can do to your body, what it can do to your psyche, what it can, having a family like that. And trying to protect them and being the mother who is possessed and allowing their children to also be hurt and possessed by the same demon. There was no struggle there. It didn't feel like there was anything going on. It's just like she was evil. That was it. Kids are going to become evil too. That's it. And what I did like is there's a bit of an homage, I think, with the combination of everything into the ultra monster, the Megazord. Was
Mega Demon.
The Mega Demon. The Mega was the movie Society. I don't know if anybody's ever seen Society before, but it's gross, but it's fun. And the entire 15-20 minutes of this film it's all about these like high society families, and they all get together for this orgy where they kind of all start to meld together into some giant, massive flesh
of course
monster thing. But that's I felt there was a bit of a homage to that, is when she combined the family together into one big monster demon. I think really lent itself just a little. It may just be me, but I saw it there because it's another big gory movie with similar themes and stuff in it. And but I loved the final sequence. I loved the wood chipper and the chainsaw scene, which was kind of an homage to Mia from 2013, where she's like really leaning into the chainsaw into the face and everything going all crazy. And but yeah, I agree. Like the ending just. It didn't feel like it mattered. It didn't feel like anything was earned. They just kind of got away. And like we know in the Evil Dead universe that the demon doesn't just get killed. The demon doesn't just go away. The demon still exists and just wanders about and does it. Even with the TV show, that with the Necronomicon just kind of like chases Ash around. And that would have been fine. And like they tried to explain it a little bit with the record when the priest talks about he had to dismember his brother or whatever who got possessed. Like a full dismemberment was the only way to stop this thing. Yeah. It was so brief. I don't think people caught on to the fact that that's what the wood chipper was for. It was complete dismemberment. But even with the complete dismemberment, it doesn't matter. The demon's still going to get out, which is always a thing with the Evil Dead. Is it doesn't matter if you do this whole ritual thing anyway, the demon's still going to get there. Yeah. So yeah, that was just part of the end disappointment of it. But I did like, again, because I liked the bookends. I like how it finally wrapped up with what was it, Jessica? It comes out at the end, and that's where she is. She sees the gory mess that was left over in the parking lot. I don't know how she didn't smell any of that, but she didn't notice it until she turned around. So,
well, like plenty of people that I know in LA don't pay attention to their surroundings, and if they're on their phone and going,
That's
She's
true.
not
And you just
I
kind of
will
ignore
say
the smell.
I parked next to
kind
a
of
dead
ignored the
body a
smells
couple
anyway,
weeks
anyway.
ago, so I
Oh wow.
that actually happened. So I'm one of those people.
But okay, so that is all the time that we unfortunately have today. I know we could just keep talking and talking and talking, which I wish we could, but we have limited time, kind of. But I want to thank you guys for coming and talking about this. I want to know if you guys would recommend this movie to people, and also for you guys to let the people out there know where they can find you on social media and everything like that. Derrick, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I think I would still recommend it, even though I've dropped my rating a whole point. I don't think it's a bad movie, and in comparison to what Fede Alvarez has also done, which is an unspeakable remake that no one should ever see. This is a much better improvement over that. So, I think there's a lot to like. And I think if you are an Evil Dead fan, at the very least, you should see it to figure out where you're going to place it in your overall franchise. And then if you're just a horror fan and you just want to check this out, I would recommend that you watch some other things before it. But there is enough to enjoy here. And again, Sutherland is, she's giving it her all. Like we talked about the title card, like there's just enough here that I think it's worth watching, even if I don't like everything that happens. So I would still absolutely recommend the movie. You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at DRock Comedy. It's OK Comedy. You can check me out on nerdbot.com, writing reviews all the time. I'm getting to about 100 new movies this month, by the time this month finishes, I'll have 100 new movies in 2023, which is incredible because like 60 of them are from 2022 just getting released now, but that's a festival complaint. But anyways, check me out on nerdbot.com, and then you can follow me on Facebook if you don't want to listen to your aunt, you want to hear me talk about movies, just at Derrick Murray. So.
Nice. Well, thank you for being here. Lonny, would you recommend this to people, and where can the people out there locate you?
I would absolutely still recommend this to people. I think in the grand scheme, it belongs in the world of the Evil Dead movies. It has its place, even though I may have some problems with it. I agree. There's still enough there, and there's still a large amount of body to this that I think is important, and still grows on the mythos, and gives you some good. It still gives you some good gore as well. I mean, there's some good stuff, and it's still great practical effects, and you still get a lot out of it. So yeah, I would absolutely still recommend. This is just not my favorite. But I'm always around on Instagram and Twitter at the Sith Abides. And just if you ever want to talk about horror movies, I'm always happy to talk and listen and argue and block people for their bad opinions.
I like your style. Anastasia,
I feel like that's all Twitter is good for now. So,
Anastasia, would you recommend this to people, and where can people out there find you?
Yes, I would absolutely recommend it to people that are horror fans. This would not be a beginning horror film for anybody, nor a place to start the franchise. But yes, I would say, especially if you can see it in theaters, hell yeah, I think it would be fun, a fun ride. You can find me at Anastasia Wash on Instagram, at Anastasia W on TikTok and Twitter, but I'm very rarely on Twitter anymore. Sorry, guys. Everywhere, like if you just go to my link tree, which is Anastasia Wash, you can find my stand-up dates and weird stuff that I'm doing on there sometimes.
Well, thank you all for being here and having the conversation with us. If you want to continue this conversation, please join our Discord to keep it going, as well as subscribing to all of our other platforms at Nom Talk Network. I'm your host, Erric Ramirez, and you can find me on almost every social media platform except for Twitter, because I got rid of that, at Heartless7. That's HARTL, the number 3 SS7. But please join us for our next show. I'm super excited. And until then, everybody out there, have a nomerific day.